Whoever becomes mayor in 2016 is going to have to move very rapidly, because the growth of population in London is stunning.
There's a risk that it will become that the quality of life will be less good, so that the tubes and the trains get packed, that there isn't enough housing.
But London has always been highly adaptable. It's very good at managing change.
You need Crossrail 2, you need Crossrail 3, you need at least 50,000 new homes a year. And if we don't get that underway well before the end of this decade, firms will be starting to say it's just too difficult to operate in London.
We're particularly concerned about personal tax rates because we're very high compared with other world cities that we see ourselves as competing with.
There's a tidal wave of money coming from Russia, from China and from the Middle East at the moment, looking for a safe home for their capital. We could well do without that poisoned money.
If a government in the future started meddling with rent controls, if a government in the future, central government, started to meddle with top tax rates, we would be making all the mistakes that you can make that turn the world's capital into the world's backwater.
I think the risks involved, if it ever came to a question of whether Britain should leave the EU, would be profound. I mean, it would be a huge leap in the dark.
There are those who are absolutely clear that we have to remain in the European Union. Ironically, they tend to be the same people who told us that we had to be in the euro.
I think the question that will come forward is how our relationship will evolve as we see post-general election, a referendum come forward and a decision be made by the general public.
This is the continent that's home to us, and I think it's intrinsic to us.
A lot of inward investors come here citing access to Europe as one of the reasons that they're basing themselves here.
Europe seeks to constrain London and to control it with regulation and constraint.
I'm not one of those who wants to turn his back on Europe. I love Europe. I don't love the European Union.
If you're not part of one of the big players like America or China or Brazil, then you're just at the sidelines, you have no influence, and therefore the influence Britain has within Europe is worth building on, not constantly threatening to storm off in a huff.
Of course, what we want to make sure is that London is reachable to many global markets, and so that's a combination of making sure that we have links nationally, and we're seeing emergencies of HS2 come forward, but also we need to critically sort out our runway capacity to ensure that we can remain competitive at a global level.
We think post-credit crisis we really need to understand the direction of travel of the different sectors in London, things like tech and tourism, which are coming up rapidly.
So it's all about the underpinning, the sort of mechanisms that allow us to live our lives, so they can be tubes, trains, houses, water and electricity supplies, all of those things, but in the end they have to function and function well so that we can all get on with our lives together.